So I'm going to show you how to do a very simple envelope cushion. So this is just one that I've made before. I've made loads of them for my house, so they're dead easy to do. You only actually have about 3 rows of stitching, so it's very quick. So what we're going to do is we're going to measure your cushion insert first. So the one I have in here is a standard one I think I had from IKEA, but you can buy them from Home Bargains and wherever. So this one was a 14-inch cushion. So if you have a cushion that is a different size and you wanted to make it to whatever size you want, check the size of the actual inner itself. Because this one is 14 inches, and I can see that it allows for a little bit more space around. So I'm going to draw a square which is 14 inches by 14 inches. So I'm going to do that first. Now I have dot and cross paper, which is brilliant for helping you get your straight lines, so it's much easier. So I'm going to draw my first line and I'm going to measure it at 14 inches. I'm going to do another line down here, and again I'm going to measure 14. And then we just want to line it all up. Now I have a pattern master which is amazing for helping with these things, but otherwise you can just measure as you normally would a couple of spaces along the line to get your exact measurements. So what I need to add on to this, now I've done 14 inches by 14 inches, I need to add on what's called a seam allowance to make sure that when we sew it all together, the finished measurement is 14 to fit your cushion inner. So I'm going to just add 1 centimetre the whole way around, and then we're going to cut this out, and this is going to be our pattern piece for our cushion. So then we just chop around the outside of the seam allowance. And this is a great first project to do, as a cushion is lovely, straight lines, and it just means it's a lovely kind of one to make for your very first one if you're a bit unsure about where to start with sewing. So when you have your nice big square, this is going to be your front piece for the cushion, which is going to be this part here. But on the back, because it's the envelope one here, we need to divide the back into 2 pieces. We can't just put it in half because we don't want these to not join. We want them to overlap a little bit. So what we're going to do when we get to cutting the back, I'm just going to fold some of this pattern piece down, so that we end up cutting more of a 2/3 piece for those. But for the first bit, we're going to just get the chosen fabric for the front. So I've gone for this very lovely Tilda fabric, which I absolutely adore. So I'll cut some off this. So we're going to just cut 1 piece for your front. So I'm going to open this up, place this on, and we're just going to pin it on and cut around. So when you actually pin it on, try and keep everything as flat to the table as possible. And I tend to try and just keep all my pins within the seam allowance and weight every corner down. There we go. So always use really sharp pins, so don't buy, unfortunately, really pretty pins. Keep your pins simple, sharp, boring, but they need to be doing the job. So I would recommend buying a good pot of pins and keeping those with you. So I've got self-healing mats on here, so I tend to use the Alpha blades to cut out. So make sure that there are no pins underneath, and I'm just going to chop around using this. So it takes a bit of getting used to, but they are amazing once you actually get to grips with them. So that's really nice and quick. So I'm going to unpin this piece. And then place that front section to one side. Now, like I said for the back pieces, because I want them to be more than half of this, but I want 2 pieces, I'm just going to fold a small section of it back. So it's just about that much. So we know that when we cut 2 of these, they'll overlap. So I'm going to cut through 2 layers of my fabric this time. Rather than cut one and then cut another one, I'm going to fold my fabric in 2 layers there. And we're just going to place this on, same way I did the first time. We're going to just pin all the way through, but this time we're pinning through 2 layers, so you cut both back pieces out at the same time. So I'm going to just go around and pin. If you prefer to weight down your fabric, you can do that as well, but that's your nice quick way. So again, check there are no pins so you don't blunt your blade. And then same thing, cut around the outside. And then keep all your scraps to one side. And then we can unpin these sections as well. And now all of your cutting out is done. So you should have your 1 square for the front, and then you should have 2 pieces which will overlap on the back. So now we're ready to sew. So what we're going to do now is we're going to neaten one of the long edges of the back pieces separately. So I'm going to put the machine onto a zigzag. I'm going to set it nice and wide, so maybe on about 6, or the widest your machine will go. It needs to be quite quick to do, so on about 3.5 stitch length, if not 4. And all we're going to do is neaten the edge. So we're going to put the needle just off the edge of the fabric, and just in and just off. If you don't want to zigzag this, you can just fold your fabric under twice at the next stage, which I'll show you. But this is quite a nice way to stop it fraying. So I'm now just going to stitch all the way down here. No need to backstitch. Take your needle to the top position, pull it out and cut it. So that gives you that edge there. But a fine fabric, you don't have to do the zigzag. It's an optional one. So the edge that you've now zigzagged, you can press that back once, about 1.5 centimeters, and then you can just press that back using a bit of steam, just to have a nice neat edge. If you didn't want to do the zigzag on the edge and you just wanted to just do a straight stitch, you could press that back and you could fold it back again, so all of your raw edges are hidden inside. So you've got best of both worlds. Either zigzag, fold it once, or fold it twice and hide everything inside. And so same way, have that from the front, and that will be your inside. So now what we're going to do, on the back pieces where you've either folded it back once and zigzagged, or you folded it twice, we want to sew from the right side, securing that layer together so that it doesn't move. And I'm going to sew from the right side. So I'm going to start right up on the top on straight stitch on 2.5 stitch length, and the edge of the fabric is along the edge of the foot. I'm going to hand wind down. I'm going to go forward 2, back 2, and then I'm going to go all the way down, keeping the edge of the fabric against the edge of the foot. and then reverse at the end as well. Take your needle to the top position, pull it out, cut your ends, and that's how it should look from the front. And that's how it looks from the inside. The next stage is to get your front panel and to place it on the table in front of you with the right side facing up. Now get one of your two back pieces, the bit that you have sewn and neatened, you're going to place towards the centre of the cushion. So you place your right sides together and all of your raw edges together. So that's like a little mantra that I'll say for most tutorials that I do. Right sides of your fabric facing each other, raw edges together. So when you've put that one down, you can then get your second piece and you do the same thing, right sides together, match up all of your corners, make sure that the finished seam is the one sitting in the centre, and then we pin all the way around the outside, as many pins as you feel you need, and then we're just going to sew one continuous square all the way around. Once you've sewn that, if you want to zigzag to neaten it, you can, but if you just choose to straight stitch, turn it inside out, then that's absolutely fine. So now we're all pinned, we're ready to start sewing the cushion together, but before you start sewing, we can now use the Pilot Frixion Pen, which we can just mark the corners in 1 centimetre in from each edge, and it helps you then know when to stop and when to pivot, and that can iron off afterwards, which is a great little tip. So what we're going to do is we're going to put it in the sewing machine. We're going to make sure your stitch length is on 2.5. We're going to start on one of the straight edges, so don't start on a corner, and we're going to just go back and forth at the beginning, and then we're going to go all the way down to the corner. When we reach the corner, we keep our needle in, we lift our foot and we pivot round, ready then to sew the next line. So we then stitch all the way down to the end of that one. Again, when you get to the corner, needle in, pivot, same on again, and same until you get round to where you started, and you aim to overlap where you started to secure your threads. So you just go forward and back to secure that in place. And then it's optional, if it's something that you want to put in through the wash, then it's good to do a zigzag all the way around just to make sure that it's nice and neat. But again, it's an optional, so if you want to do it, put it on a really wide stitch of about 5 and make it nice and long, say about 4. And then it just means you can just whiz around the outside and you're all ready then to turn it through the right way. So last thing, before we turn the cushion through, we don't want these corners to be too bulky, because they're all going to have all of that fullness inside. So all I'm going to do, even though you've done your nice zigzag, we're just going to cut off the corners there and there, so not too close, but then it reduces all of that bulk in that corner so you don't have so much going on. So I'm going to do that in each corner and quickly cut those off. Nice sharp pair of scissors. Then what we're going to do is we're going to turn it inside out. So just by hand, first of all, poke all the corners through with your finger. So using a pair of scissors that aren't too sharp, so these have got quite a nice curve on the top, we're just going to poke that corner through to give that lovely finish, nice and sharp point there. And then take out your scissors and then you just pop your cushion in there. Tuck the front in there. And we're just going to poke the corners out. So I like to just fill the cushion out with those corners before we turn it the right way round to make sure they're filled as much as possible. So that's how your back of the cushion will look, and your front is there, nice and easy. So before you actually start to sew on the machine, what I just want to show you is how the machine actually works under here. So I'm just going to drop off his foot